You're not awake yet, but something already lingers in the air. A faint sweetness, soft like a memory, and bitter like longing. You do not know whether you are breathing in the trace of roses crushed before dawn, or the prayers whispered into the hollow of a glass vessel that waits beside you. The world of today is not the world you thought you knew. Tonight, you do not sleep in your own bed. You do not live in your own time. You belong to an empire that floats between silence and fragrance, where even air carries secrets. Your eyes open slowly. Above you, the ceiling is painted with tiny stars, each fleck of gold catching the faintest light from the oil lamp burning low. Shadows stretch across the plaster like ink stains on parchment. The chamber is cool, its walls breathing the weight of centuries. You do not rise yet. You remain still, letting the scent fill you. Rose water, sandalwood, a ghost of saffron, the kinds of smells that the world you come from could only imitate, never embody. You are in Agra. The year is 1628. Dawn has not yet broken, yet the palace does not sleep. Somewhere beyond these walls, servants are already moving. Careful footsteps muffled against marble. They carry bowls of water, trays of cloth, the fragile glass bottles that will soon hold the essence of the day. You feel as though you have woken inside someone else's breath, as though the air itself has been exhaled by the past. You rise. The stone floor is cold beneath your feet, but the chill wakes you more gently than any sound could. You step toward the low table in the corner of the chamber. Upon it stand 3 bottles, slender-necked, their bodies glowing faintly in the half-light. They're not empty. They hum almost, as though the glass remembers every hand that has held it, every secret spoken into it. These are not only vessels for perfume, they are vessels for hope. You reach for one, the smallest, and your hand trembles before it even touches the cool surface. In this world, bottles are not made only to hold liquid. They are made to hold memory, belief, fragments of the invisible. The emperors, the queens, the women of the Zenana, all know that fragrance is a kind of prayer. When the first distillation of rose water is sealed into glass, it is not only scent that is captured, it is time itself, the breath of morning gardens, the whisper of dew. The bottle in your hand is clear, yet when you lift it toward the lamp, the liquid inside glows, like moonlight caught in water. You bring the glass to your nose, and suddenly the chamber disappears. You are no longer in stone and shadow. You're outside, in the palace gardens at dawn. The sky is still indigo, the stars reluctant to fade. Gardeners move silently, bending to pluck roses before the sun touches them, because once sunlight kisses the petals, the essence begins to flee. The men carry baskets woven from reeds, careful not to bruise the flowers. Each rose is placed as though it were a jewel, soft against the pile of its sisters. The air is alive with a fragrance so heavy it presses against your skin. You walk through it slowly, almost afraid to disturb it. Water channels murmur nearby, their surfaces catching faint light, trembling like mirrors not yet polished. Birds stir in the mango trees. A woman in a saffron veil moves among the gardeners, her voice low, reciting verses of the Quran as each rose is chosen. You realize she is not only supervising the collection of flowers, she is blessing them. With every word she speaks, the fragrance deepens, as if her prayer dissolves into the very oil that will later be drawn from the petals. You return to yourself. You're back in the chamber, the bottle in your hand cool and fragile. You breathe again, but now the air tastes of devotion. The emperors knew this truth. Perfume was never just perfume. It was a bridge between worlds. To anoint the body with scent was to remind the soul that it was touched by heaven. The door slides open. A servant enters, his head bowed, his arms carrying a shallow brass tray. Upon it rest new bottles, still empty, their glass mouths open like thirsty throats. He does not speak to you, yet his silence is not emptiness. It is ritual. He sets the tray down gently beside you, then withdraws. You're left again with the bottles, as though the empire has placed its memory into your care. You sit beside them. You touch each one, feeling the faint ridges, where glass has been coaxed by fire into shape. You imagine the artisans, men hunched before furnaces, their breath steady, their hands guiding molten sand into grace. To them, these bottles were children. Each curve, each flare of the lip was a decision, a prayer made physical. When finished, the bottles traveled by camel and cart, from Gujarat or Persia, to be filled here in the heart of Hindustan. They carried not just fragrance, but the road itself, the silence of deserts, the sound of caravan bells. You lift another bottle. This one is darker, tinted faintly green. Its belly is wide, its neck slender, its stopper carved from ivory. You hold it close, and for a moment, you hear voices. Women's laughter, muffled by silk curtains, the rustle of anklets against marble. Somewhere in the Zenana, queens and princesses sit, cross-legged, glass bottles arranged before them like a garden of light. One lifts a stopper and touches her wrist with a drop of oil. She breathes it in, closes her eyes. Another whispers a line of poetry, a couplet of Ghalib not yet written, but somehow alive already in the air. They do not wear perfume only to please the emperor. They wear it to converse with themselves, to remember that even behind walls, the body is free to dream. You place the bottle back down, your fingers reluctant to let go. Time folds around you. You are both here and elsewhere, both inside history and outside it. That is what scent does. It pierces the ordinary, carries you into rooms that no longer exist. Outside, a faint bell rings. The palace stirs more fully now. Somewhere, the emperor himself may already be rising. He will bathe, his attendants pouring warmed rosewater over his shoulders, the marble floor wet beneath his feet. He will be anointed with oils, his hair combed, his beard perfumed with musk. Each gesture is not merely hygiene, but sovereignty. For if an emperor does not smell of heaven, how can he claim to rule the earth? You do not see him. You only feel the ripple of his presence, moving invisibly through corridors. You imagine him reaching for a bottle not unlike the ones before you. He does not speak as the stopper is lifted. He does not need to. The fragrance speaks for him, declaring his body sanctified, his spirit blessed, his empire eternal. Yet you know, even this perfume will fade. By evening, sweat and dust will creep in. The day will stain his robes, and the fragrance will be memory again. You lean back, your breath slows. The bottles remain before you, silent, shimmering. You realize something, Marcet. These bottles were not meant to last forever. They were meant to carry what was fleeting. A rose cannot live more than a day once cut. A prayer cannot live more than a breath once spoken. But inside glass, for a moment, both can be held. Not forever, but long enough. Long enough to remind the living that beauty passes, and yet, in passing, becomes eternal. You close your eyes. The room fades. The empire hums around you, its marble domes catching the first light of dawn, its courtyards filling with voices, its gardens already heavy with fragrance. Somewhere another bottle is being filled, a prayer whispered into it, sealed by hands that will never be remembered. You breathe deeply. You belong to this moment. And though you will leave it, though you will return to another time, another bead, another world, tonight this fragrance will echo through you. This day will not vanish. It will echo through time. Sleep now, the bottles will wait. Your breath catches before your eyes even open. Something burns faintly in your nose. It is not the sweetness of roses this time, not sandalwood or musk. It is harsher, sharper, like leather left too long in the sun, like smoke that clings to wool. For a moment, you do not know where you are. You shift on the bedding, and the coarse fabric scratches your skin. The chamber feels heavier than before, its shadows thicker, its silence denser. You sit up slowly. The air around you is different now. Not the private scent of bottles glowing in lamplight, but the raw exhalation of a palace that has lived for centuries. You breathe shallowly, careful, because every deep inhale brings with it something unfamiliar. Sweat dried into fabric, the faint mildew of damp stone, and beneath it all, the tang of old rose water clinging stubbornly to life. You realize something simple but unsettling. In this world, fragrance is not just luxury, it is also survival. Without it, the smell of living bodies, of unwashed cloth, of stale air would overwhelm. You rise. The marble beneath your feet is cold, but no longer clean. Dust clings faintly, carried in from outside by servant sandals, pressed into the stone by endless footsteps. You walk toward the corridor, and the moment the door slides open, the shock deepens. The air that rushes in is thick with contrasts. You smell horse sweat, pungent and sharp. You smell oil poured too generously into lamps that have burned all night, their smoke staining the arches above. You smell food, not fresh, but leftovers from the kitchens. Rice cooling in copper pots, meat congealing in grease, and over it all, faint, persistent, comes the perfume, rose, oud ambergris, musk. These scents are not just pleasant, they are shields, veils thrown across reality. For without them, the empire would smell of bodies. Too many bodies, thousands pressed within walls, breathing, sweating, moving, waiting. You step further into the corridor. Servants hurry past, some barefoot, some in worn slippers. Their tunics are stained at the hems, the sweat of their labor seeping through linen. One brushes by you, and the shock is immediate. The smell is overwhelming: salt, dust, rawness of skin exposed to sun. You flinch, not because it is wrong, but because it is real. And then you notice. After every few steps, the servant pauses by a small copper bowl set in a niche in the wall. He dips his fingers into scented water, wipes them across his face, and moves on. It is ritual, not vanity. It is the only way to endure the closeness of this life. You follow. Your hand lingers above one of the bowls. The liquid gleams faintly in the morning light, a thin skin of oil floating on its surface. You touch it, lift it to your nose. The fragrance is faint, but it cuts sharply through everything else. A sudden spear of clarity in the midst of heaviness. You close your eyes. For a moment, you remember the chamber, the bottles, the silence of prayers sealed into glass. Then the moment passes. You open your eyes again, and the palace continues around you, heavy with life. You realize now what no one told you. The Mughal Empire does not smell of marble and gardens alone. It smells of sweat drying on soldiers' armor. It smells of grain rotting in storehouses during monsoon floods. It smells of camel leather cracked and rubbed with oil. It smells of dung fires in villages where no sandalwood ever burned. And into this world of relentless odor, fragrance was not decoration, it was necessity. You walk further, and the crowd grows thicker. Eunuchs with rings in their ears, guards with turbans tied around their brows, scribes clutching ink-stained cloths, all pass you. Each carries a different trace. Some wear attar pressed behind their ears, a single drop barely masking the animal strength of their bodies. Others carry no perfume at all, their scent raw and immediate, as though they themselves are the proof of labor. Every inhale is a negotiation. Your senses cannot escape it. At the far end of the corridor, a door opens onto the courtyard. Light floods in, dazzling, and for a moment you almost retreat. But then you step forward, blinking. The air here is wider, freer, yet not less dense. The shock continues. The courtyard is alive with smells, layered upon smells. The stables are near, and you catch the pungent musk of horses, their breath steaming as they toss their heads. Beyond, the kitchen sends smoke curling upward, carrying the char of bread, the sweetness of milk simmering with cardamom, the grease of lamb fat sizzling in iron pans. And beneath it all, faint yet constant, the gardeners are burning incense sticks near the fountains, as though trying to purify the very air. You realize something simple but astonishing. This is a world where people lived closer to their senses than you ever have. They could not escape smell. They could not sterilize it, erase it, bottle it away. They lived inside it, endured it, layered it with perfume when they could, prayed into bottles when they must. This is why the bottles mattered. They were not luxuries resting unused on shelves. They were shields against the sensory weight of life itself. A boy passes you, carrying a tray of rosewater flasks. He trips slightly, the liquid sloshing, and a drop falls onto the stone at your feet. Instantly, the air around you changes. That one drop blossoms, blooming against the harshness, cutting through dust and sweat. You kneel, almost without thinking, to touch it. You bring your finger to your face. And there it is again, the prayer. You do not know whose voice was spoken over this water, but you feel it. You inhale, and the burn in your nose softens. The world grows quiet, even just for a moment. You look up, and the courtyard is still alive, still heavy with smells. But now you see why the empire clung to its perfumes. They were more than beauty. They were survival. They reminded each person that beneath sweat and smoke, beneath dust and labor, there was still something divine to inhale, something worth remembering, something fleeting but eternal in its fleetingness. You breathe again, deeper this time. It still burns. But now you accept it. You wake again, but this time it is not the softness of perfume that greets you. It is hunger. A low ache curling deep in your stomach, steady and sharp. The kind that does not wait politely. The kind that insists. You sit up, and already you know that finding food will not be simple. Not here, not in this empire where fragrance is worshipped, yet bread still burns too quickly on the griddle, and water does not always promise to be clean. You rise, your body heavy with the weight of another day. The courtyard stretches before you, its stones already warming beneath the pale sun. Servants hurry past, carrying trays covered with cloths. The scent of food rises faintly: spiced rice, chickpeas boiled until soft, milk thickened with sugar. You reach for it with your mind, but not with your hands. Those trays are not for you. They're for the noble ones, the names carved into marble. You're not carved. You are breath. You are shadow. You must wait. Your throat is dry. You cross to the fountain where water glimmers faintly in its marble basin. A boy dips a brass cup, drinks, and leaves. You follow. You scoop the water into your hands and bring it to your lips. It is cool, but the taste is not pure. A faint bitterness lingers. Too many hands have touched it. Too much dust has drifted down. You swallow anyway. You do not think about what else might be floating, invisible in it. You cannot afford to think. In this empire, survival does not wait for certainty. It demands risk. Your stomach turns. Hunger sharpens. You look toward the kitchens, where smoke rises and curls, carrying with it the smell of roasting bread, the sweetness of onions frying in ghee. You walk slowly, each step heavy, as though the scent alone is pulling you closer. Inside, the air is thick with heat. Fires roar, pots bubble, knives clatter against wood. The cooks move like dancers, their motions precise, quick, practiced by years of repetition. Sweat shines on their foreheads. Their tunics cling to their bodies. The smell here is overwhelming. Spice, fire, human heat. You edge closer to a corner, waiting. A cook slams a flat round of dough against the wall of a clay oven. It clings, hisses, browns. Another cook lifts a pot of lentils, stirring until steam fogs the air. The food is close enough to touch, yet not yours. You wait, silent, as a servant ladles rice into copper bowls. You watch carefully. One bowl spills slightly, a few grains scattering to the floor. Your eyes fix on them. No one notices. When the servant leaves, you crouch quickly and sweep the grains into your palm. They are warm, soft, spiced faintly with saffron. You eat them one by one, each grain a mercy, each grain a reminder that in this empire not every stomach is full. You straighten, heart pounding, as though someone might see. No one looks. The kitchen is too busy. You slip back into the courtyard, the taste of rice lingering on your tongue. It is not enough. Hunger remains, sharp, insistent, but it is something. It is survival. You walk now through the palace, noticing what you did not before. The nobles dine behind carved screens, their plates filled with meats glazed with honey, rice layered with almonds, breads brushed with butter. The fragrance drifts outward, teasing, impossible to ignore. Your stomach nods tighter. You imagine the taste of lamb, rich and heavy, the sweetness of pomegranate seeds scattered across pilaf. You imagine it so vividly that your mouth waters. But you know, imagining is all you will have. Those dishes are not for you. They will never be for you. You step back, away from the sight. You move toward the servants' quarters, where food is simpler. Here, a pot of barley gruel simmers. Here, bread is rough, uneven, burnt in patches. Here, water is drawn from clay jars, cooler but still uncertain. You sit quietly. A woman ladles a small portion into a bowl, passes it to you without a word. The gruel is thin, but it warms your chest as you swallow. The bread is hard, but it fills the hollow of your stomach. You eat slowly, carefully, because you know there may not be more. When you finish, silence presses in. Hunger is quiet now, but thirst lingers. You drink again from the jar. The clay cools your hands. The water slips down your throat. You pray silently that it does not carry sickness. You do not know yet. You will not know until tomorrow or the day after. But you cannot wait. You cannot choose. You drink anyway. And then, as the heat of midday rises, another struggle begins. Your body aches. The weight of labor calls. You are handed a tool, a broom, a cloth, a bucket. You are told to clean the courtyard stones, to polish the brass trays, to sweep the dust that never stops returning. The work is endless. You bend, scrub, lift, repeat. The sun moves slowly overhead, but your body moves more slowly still. Your hands blister. Your shoulders burn. Sweat runs into your eyes, stinging. You cannot stop. If you stop, someone will notice. And if someone notices, silence may become punishment. You work, and all the while you think, I do not belong here. They will see. They will know. The fear whispers inside you with every movement. You sweep, and the thought sweeps through you. You polish, and the doubt polishes your bones. You bend, and the weight bends you deeper. You cannot silence it. You can only move anyway. Hours pass. The sun begins to fall. The shadows lengthen. At last, your work is paused. You are handed another small bowl of food, rice this time, plain, scattered with lentils. You eat quickly, hungrily, each bite vanishing too fast. You want more, but there is no more. You drink again, the same clay jar, the same uncertain water. You close your eyes with every swallow, as though refusing to see the risk will make it vanish. Evening falls. The palace cools. Perfume returns. Rose water is sprinkled across the marble floors. Incense lit in brass holders. Oils dab behind ears. The air shifts again. The heavy smell of sweat and labor is covered, softened, layered with sweetness. You inhale, and the hunger in you softens too. For a moment, you are not only body. You are also breath. You are also spirit. The perfume holds you. It tells you that survival is not only about bread and water. It is about remembering that beyond struggle there is still beauty. You lie down at last, your body aching, your stomach not full but quiet enough. You close your eyes. The whisper returns. Maybe I do not belong here. Maybe they will know. Maybe I am not meant for this. But another whisper rises too, faint, scented, softer than doubt. You have lived one more day. You have survived. And survival in this world is enough. The day has already been long, yet night has not arrived. The palace hums with its own rhythm, and you are drawn into it, whether you will it or not. Around you, the world seems to pause, not in silence, but in expectancy. It is the hour when belief takes shape, when ritual weaves itself into every gesture, every sound, every breath. You feel it before you even see it. The shift in air, the soft tremor of words, whispered not to human ears, but to the unseen. You are guided now gently toward the garden. The marble path stretches ahead, cool beneath your steps, lined with flickering lamps. The sun has begun to lower, and with it, a strange stillness descends. The gardeners move more quietly, their baskets of blossoms carried carefully, as though each petal might shatter at the faintest sound. The fountains murmur, their waters catching the last light, flowing endlessly toward shadow. You smell incense already burning, carried on the wind, the sharp tang of frankincense mingling with the sweetness of rose. You pause at the garden's edge. A group gathers near a raised platform. Low cushions spread across its surface. Men in long, white robes sit cross-legged, their heads bowed. In front of them rests a brass bowl filled with rose water. its surface trembling as though listening. One man recites softly, his voice low, steady, each syllable a thread pulling the listeners closer to stillness. You cannot hear every word, but you know what it is. Verses from the Quran, the same that have echoed in mosques, in markets, in fields. Verses that turn sound into devotion, air into prayer. You sit, though no one tells you to. You sit because the ground itself seems to ask it of you. You fold your legs, you lower your eyes, and you listen. The voice continues, flowing like water over stone, rising, falling, circling back. The scent of the rosewater deepens with every line, as though the words themselves are dissolving into the liquid, sealing themselves inside. When at last the recitation ends, silence blooms. Not empty silence, but silence filled with something larger, heavier, invisible yet undeniable. The bowl is lifted, carried carefully. Drops of the perfumed water are sprinkled onto the earth, onto the roses, onto the very air, and then, at last, into small glass bottles. You watch as each drop slides down the neck of the vessel, as if even liquid hesitates before being captured. Stoppers are placed, pressed tightly, and there, in your sight, a prayer has been transformed into a fragrance, a belief made tangible. You reach for one of the bottles when no one watches. Your fingers curl around the glass. It is warm, as though it remembers the breath of the voice that sanctified it. You lift it, bring it to your nose. The fragrance is not like the rose water you have smelled before. It is heavier, denser, as though carrying weight beyond itself. You breathe in, and suddenly the garden vanishes. You are inside the Zenana now. The women are gathered, veils drawn, eyes lowered. In the center, a young woman holds a bottle like the one in your hand. She tilts it, letting a single drop fall onto her wrist. She closes her eyes. Her lips move, but no sound emerges. You realize she is praying silently, inwardly, her words joining those already captured within the liquid. When she opens her eyes, they glisten, not with tears, but with something deeper. She rises, touches her forehead to the marble floor, and only then does she smile. The perfume lingers in the air around her, light yet unshakable, as though carrying her prayer outward to the unseen. You return to yourself, still in the garden, still holding the bottle. You breathe again, slower now, and you understand. In this empire, belief is not separate from fragrance. Ritual does not end at the mosque, nor at the altar, nor in the quiet of a single prayer rug. It continues in the act of distilling roses, of bottling water, of wearing perfume before speaking to the emperor, before lying in bed, before stepping into the garden. Every drop is a reminder. You are not just body. You are offering. The phrase echoes in your mind. You are not just a servant. You are the offering. It repeats with every breath. It repeats as you place the bottle back on the tray. It repeats as the bowl of rosewater is carried away, as the voices around you return to ordinary conversation. It follows you as you stand, as you move once more through the courtyard, as the lamps grow brighter and the sky darker. You walk past a small chamber where a calligrapher bends over parchment, his brush moving slowly, precisely. The scent of ink fills the air, sharp and metallic, yet beside him burns a stick of incense. Even here, even in the quiet labor of words, ritual demands fragrance. You walk past another chamber where a physician grinds herbs, crushing leaves into powder. The air is thick with their sharpness, but on the table beside him rests a vial of saffron water. Belief lingers here too, that medicine without blessing is incomplete. Everywhere you go, the pattern repeats. A guard before the gate touches a drop of attar behind his ear before beginning his watch. A servant whispers Bismillah before sprinkling rosewater on the floors. A mother rubs her child's hair with oil, murmuring a verse to keep evil away. None of these acts are grand. None require marble domes or jeweled walls. Yet together they weave the empire's fabric. They turn ordinary survival into ritual, ordinary breath into prayer. You realize now that the bottles you first saw in your chamber were never mere objects. They were threads in this vast, unseen tapestry. Each one carried not just liquid, but memory. Each one held not only scent, but belief. To wear fragrance was to wear faith. To inhale it was to inhale devotion. To anoint the body was to remind the soul, you are offering. Night falls. The muezzin's call rises, carried by the wind. It is soft yet unignorable, weaving itself through the palace, the gardens, the stables, the kitchens. Every creature pauses. Every breath slows. You stand still, the words echoing through your chest. The lamps flicker, shadows lengthen. Somewhere nearby, a servant uncorks another bottle. The perfume mingles with a call to prayer, scent joining sound, devotion joining devotion. You close your eyes. For a moment, you feel as though the empire itself has stilled, as though every stone, every petal, every breath has joined in the same ritual. You are no longer apart from it. You are within it. You are not just body. You are offering. And as the fragrance settles around you, you know that this truth will follow you. Not only tonight, not only tomorrow. For as long as you breathe, this ritual will cling to you, soft as rose water, persistent as belief. You wake before the dawn call, not because you are summoned, but because the palace itself stirs. It is not the bird song that wakes you, nor the faint rustle of branches in the garden, but something deeper, a tension in the air, a silent reminder that today is not ordinary. Today, power gathers. The corridors are alive, even in half darkness. Servants move quickly, their bare feet soundless against marble. Each carries something small, scrolls rolled and tied with silk, trays covered with embroidered cloth, bottles sealed with wax. You notice the bottles first. They appear again and again, held carefully, their glass glinting in the lamplight. Not perfumes for pleasure, but perfumes for order. You follow their path without knowing why. The Diwani cause awaits. You enter through the side, unannounced, invisible as always. Yet, even here, among silken curtains and inlaid pillars, you feel the weight of hierarchy pressing down. The emperor has not arrived, but his presence is already everywhere. Nobles sit in ranked rows, turbans folded high, jewels catching the flame of oil lamps. Their voices murmur, low but tense. Each knows his place. Each knows the order. In the center lies a silver basin, filled with rosewater and saffron strands. A servant dips his fingers, sprinkles droplets on the marble floor, then onto the steps where the emperor will soon tread. The act is both cleansing and proclamation. This space is sanctified. This order is protected. A hush falls. You do not see him enter at first, only the ripple he causes. Men bow slightly, voices stop, stillness deepens. Then you glimpse him, the emperor, draped not in overwhelming splendor, but in controlled precision. Every fold of his robe deliberate, every jewel chosen for meaning, not excess. He does not look at you. He does not need to. His gaze sweeps across the nobles, and the room itself bends. He sits, and ritual begins. Before any words are spoken of law, of decree, of rebellion in distant provinces, a servant steps forward. In his hand, a crystal vial. He uncorks it, pours a drop into the emperor's palm. The fragrance rises, saffron and amber, sharp yet warm. The emperor rubs his hands together, inhales deeply. Only then does he speak. You feel the shift immediately. Fragrance here is not luxury. It is authority. Each noble watches the gesture. It is reminder and warning both. Law is not written only on parchment, but breathed into the very air. The emperor's words now flow, measured, deliberate. He speaks of justice, of tribute, of oaths broken and oaths renewed. And as he speaks, servants move quietly along the rows, dabbing rosewater on the hands of nobles, sprinkling saffron mist into the hall. Each man breathes it in, each man reminded. Power is not abstract. Power is scent you cannot escape. You realize then the deeper truth. Perfume here is hierarchy made tangible. The emperor inhales first, nobles second, attendants last. The order of fragrance is the order of empire. Those who breathe directly from the source are closest to power. Those who receive diluted drops are subjects, followers, bound by obedience. Even scent is law. A dispute arises. Two nobles stand, their voices edged, their hands trembling. Land, revenue, boundary, arguments as old as soil itself. The emperor raises his hand. Instantly silence. He motions toward the silver basin. A servant lifts it, carries it between the disputants. They dip their fingers into the rosewater, press the droplets to their foreheads. The fragrance clings to them, cooling their anger, binding their tongues. The emperor speaks once more, his judgment final. They bow, dispute ended. No ink, no blade, only water, only scent. Law has been enforced. You watch, stunned. Could rule truly rest on such fragile acts? Yet you see the strength in it. To resist the emperor is not only to resist his armies, but to resist even the air you breathe. For in every hall, every chamber, every gathering, perfume reinforces order. It lingers on robes, in beards, on scrolls sealed with musk. Authority is not just heard, it is smelled. Later, you wander through corridors where scribes bend over decrees. Even here, fragrance flows. Seals are pressed with scented wax. Scrolls are dusted with saffron before being tied. Justice, once written, is carried not only by words, but by smell, so that when the scroll is opened days or weeks later, the fragrance recalls the authority of the court. You imagine distant governors, unrolling parchment, inhaling the faint perfume still clinging, reminded that power does not fade with distance. You realize that hierarchy is not cruelty alone. It is order. Without order, gardens would wither, fountains run dry, voices clash endlessly. Perfume is not only pleasure, it is reminder that one stands above, another below, yet both are bound in the same chain. The emperor at the top, the servant at the base, but all breathing the same rosewater, all reminded you are offering. As evening falls, you are once again in the garden. The emperor has retired, but his presence lingers. The nobles have dispersed, but their robes still carry the musk of the hall. The servants wash the marble steps, yet the faint scent of saffron clings stubbornly, as though law itself has seeped into stone. The fountains murmur, the roses lean, the lamps flicker. You inhale, and the fragrance still lingers on you too. For the first time, you understand the paradox. Power is intangible, yet here it is captured, bottled, worn. Hierarchy is invisible, yet here it is breathed. Law is fragile, yet here it is sealed, not in ink, but in perfume. You close your eyes, and the words return. soft as ever. You are not just body, you are offering. But now another layer joins it. You are not just subject, you are vessel of order. The night deepens. Somewhere far off, a muezzin calls. A servant lights incense, smoke curling upward. The empire breathes. And so do you. The fragrance binds you, holds you. You cannot escape it, nor would you want to. For here, in this palace, under this sky, in this empire, perfume is more than beauty. It is law. You wake in the hush of a still morning, where the first breath of air is neither warm nor cool, but balanced like a secret between night and day. The palace has not yet stirred with the footsteps of servants or the measured tread of guards, and in that silence you notice something else, a fragrance. It is faint but deliberate. Sandalwood smoke drifts in slow spirals, mingling with the dampness of marble that still holds the cool of night. Someone somewhere has lit incense before dawn, not for pleasure, not for display, but for medicine. For in the Mughal world, scent is not only beauty, it is healing. You find yourself drawn to the chambers of the hakims, the physicians who serve the court. Their rooms are smaller than the emperor's halls, yet filled with a different grandeur. Shelves stacked with glass vials, porcelain jars sealed with wax, scrolls covered in precise Arabic and Persian script. A mortar rests on the floor, stained gold from saffron, dark from ground cloves, green from crushed herbs. Here, science and fragrance are one. The Hakim greets you without surprise, as though he has been waiting for you. He wears a robe plain but spotless, and his hands smell faintly of camphor and cardamom. Without words, he gestures for you to sit. You obey, and he begins to work. On his desk lies a patient's chart, not written with numbers alone, but with rhythms, with seasons, with observations of the moon cycle. He dips his pen in ink and notes that the man's pulse beat yesterday was uneven, his breath shallow, his dreams restless. The Hakim pauses, then uncorks a small bottle. Musk. He holds it to his nose, inhales deeply, then writes another line. This man will heal with musk, not with saffron. This man's ailment is not of the stomach, but of the spirit. You realize then how differently time moves here. The Hakim does not measure hours by a clock. He measures the body by fragrance, by cycles of heat and cold, wet and dry, day and night. Time here is not mechanical. It is living. The Hakim mixes drops of rosewater with ground pearl, stirs them into a paste, then folds the mixture into a strip of cotton. He hands it to a waiting servant, instructing that it be placed under the patient's pillow. Sleep will come, he murmurs, because roses remember what the mind forgets. You breathe in the scent yourself and feel its calm. Sleep does not feel distant anymore. It hovers, gentle, like a bird waiting to land. The Hakim then shows you another bottle. Inside, not perfume, but ambergris steeped in vinegar. He explains that it sharpens memory, clears the fog of forgetfulness. Time is cruel, he whispers, but scent slows it. A man may forget his oath, but the smell of the emperor's rosewater will remind him. A woman may forget her youth, but the scent of saffron oil will return her to her wedding night. He pauses, and for a moment you see the fragility of all things. Kingdoms rise and fall, gardens bloom and wither. Marble erodes, ink fades, yet scent lingers. A drop clings to a veil for decades. A trace survives on a letter for centuries. Fragrance defies time in ways no monument can. As the day unfolds, you follow the Hakim into the palace gardens. Here, apprentices work like alchemists, gathering herbs before sunrise. When their essence is strongest, they pluck tulsi leaves still wet with dew, cut jasmine before its petals open too wide, collect resins from trees while the sap is thick. They move quietly, as though afraid to disturb the plant's secrets. The Hakim teaches them softly. Every plant holds not just scent, but temperament. Musk warms the body, camphor cools it, saffron stirs the blood, rose steadies the heart. You must know not only the fragrance, but its time. You watch as they bottle the harvest, sealing it in glass. Each jar is labeled not just with the plant's name, but with the date, the hour, even the position of the stars. For here, medicine is not chemistry alone. It is timekeeping. It is aligning human life with the rhythm of the cosmos. Later, you are led to a quiet chamber where an elderly scholar sits cross-legged on a woven mat. In front of him, astrolabes gleam, their brass discs inscribed with stars and angles. He turns one slowly, watching the way light falls across its curves. Time, he tells you, is not the same for everyone. The emperor feels it differently than the servant. The child feels it differently than the old. But scent is equal. It strikes all at once, collapses distance. You breathe, and you are both here and in memory. To prove his words, he opens a vial of oud. The fragrance is rich, smoky, almost overwhelming. And instantly, you are not in this chamber. You're in a caravan crossing a desert. You hear camels groan, merchants shout, fires crackle. The scholar smiles at your expression. Yes, time folds, memory lives. Scent is the bridge. You return, shaken but comforted. Perhaps time is not as merciless as you once feared. Perhaps perfume carries prayers, not only forward, but backward too. As evening falls, the Hakim lights a brazier. He sprinkles frankincense over the coals. The smoke rises, curling upward like a question to the heavens. Servants gather around, inhaling the sharp sweetness. Some cough, some close, their eyes in peace. The Hakim watches carefully, noting which bodies resist, which bodies open. Science, he says, is not the absence of prayer. It is prayer shaped into method. The garden quiets, stars appear. The empire breathes. You inhale once more, and for a fleeting moment, you feel timeless. You are body, you are memory, you are vessel, and through fragrance, you are eternal. You step into a hall where silence hums like a hidden instrument. The walls are covered not with jewels or mirrors, but with parchment, scrolls, and paintings, layered one upon another like the skin of time itself. You know at once. This is not a place of war nor of medicine, but of thought. Here, scent becomes art. The air is soft, perfumed not with musk or saffron, but with ink itself, the faint sharpness of lampblack, the sweetness of gum arabic, the earthy damp of parchment. You breathe it in and realize, to the Mughal artist, even writing is a fragrance. At a low desk, a painter bends over ivory paper. His brush is thin, carved from squirrel hair. With each stroke, he layers pigment. Lapis blue, malachite green, crushed ruby, powdered gold. Yet beside him lies not only his palette of colors, but a vial of rose attar. Every few minutes, he uncorks the vial, inhales deeply, and continues. You watch, curious. Why perfume? He notices your gaze and smiles. Color tires the eye, he whispers, but scent refreshes the soul. If the mind is weary, the hand will tremble. Attar steadies both. You lean closer. The painting he creates is no ordinary portrait. It is the emperor, yes, seated on his throne, but look closer and you see something strange. Around the emperor's head, the painter has brushed invisible strokes, as though painting air itself. This, the artist says, is not a crown. It is the memory of perfume. Without fragrance, power is hollow. I paint what cannot be seen. The thought lingers with you. Art here is not mere depiction. It is fragrance translated into form. In another corner, poets sit in quiet debate. Their robes are simple, but their tongues are fire. They recite verses in Persian, weaving imagery of nightingales, gardens, lovers, and always perfume. One poet raises his hand and chants, "What is memory? A bottle uncorked. What is longing? The fragrance of musk. What is love? A prayer that lingers in the folds of a veil long after the lover has gone." The others nod, eyes closed, as though scent itself drifts from his words. You realize then, poetry is fragrance. Its power is not in sight or touch, but in lingering, unseen presence. A philosopher joins them, his beard silver, his eyes sharp as glass. He carries no book, no ink, only a single bottle of sandalwood oil. He tilts it toward you. This, he says, is eternity. Sandalwood lasts longer than kingdoms. Burn it, and its smoke remains. Pour it, and its fragrance endures. A poet dies, but his words are sandalwood. They live. He presses the bottle to your hand. You feel the cool glass, smell the wood's deep, grounding warmth. Time is a cruel sea, he continues, but scent is the boat. Philosophy is not questions and answers. It is fragrance, what lingers, what stays. You look around the hall again. Painters paint not with pigment alone, but with memories of a tar. Poets write not with ink alone, but with musk-laced imagery. Philosophers speak not with arguments, but with sandalwood metaphors. And slowly, you understand, to the Mughal mind, beauty, wisdom, and fragrance are one. As dusk falls, musicians arrive. They sit with sitars, tablas, flutes. The air grows thick with sound and scent together. A servant sprinkles rose water on the marble floor, and as the instruments begin, the fragrance rises with the notes. The music swells, the scent deepens, and for a moment, you cannot tell if what moves you is the song or the fragrance. Perhaps both, perhaps neither, perhaps they are the same. You close your eyes. The sitar strings tremble, the rose water cools the air, the poets murmur verses, the sandalwood burns low, and you, seated among them, are neither listener nor guest. You are fragrance itself, drifting through art, through poetry, through philosophy, lingering, invisible, eternal. When the music ends, silence returns, but the scent remains. That, you realize, is the lesson. Art fades, ink fades, voices fade, but fragrance endures. And through it, so does memory. You wake to the sound of bells, soft, silver, echoing through marble corridors. Dawn in the Mughal court is never just the beginning of a day. It is a ritual as carefully perfumed as a bottle of attar. Servants glide past you, each holding brass censers. From their mouths trails smoke, not of firewood, but of amber resin. The fragrance curls through the halls, clinging to walls of white marble, seeping into tapestries, kissing the air itself. You follow it, half dreaming, half awake, until you reach the great courtyard. Here, the emperor's household gathers before sunrise. No words are spoken. A ritual of silence begins. Attendants open small bottles of rose water, sprinkling them in slow arcs across the floor. Drops fall like dew upon stone, making the marble shimmer. You kneel, touch the damp stone, and lift your hand to your face. The rose is faint, but it lingers, an invisible prayer offered to the dawn. The emperor enters. His robe gleams with gold thread embroidery, but his gesture is simple. He raises a vial of musk oil and lets a single drop fall upon his wrist. Then he touches that wrist to his heart. You feel the hush deepen, as though the entire court breathes in time with him. Musk, they believe, sharpens memory. To begin a day with musk is to bind your soul to remembrance. The morning ritual ends, but the customs continue. In the Zenana, the women prepare for Mina Bazaar, a festival not of buying and selling, but of fragrance. Each stall is veiled with curtains. Each handmaiden carries hidden bottles. You wander between them, lifting one curtain at a time. From one stall drifts saffron, sharp and golden. From another, vetiver, cool as rain on stone. From another, a blend of clove and jasmine, dizzying as midnight. The women laugh softly. Which scent, they whisper, will you choose to carry into the festival of lights? Which prayer will you let cling to your skin? For here, perfume is more than adornment. It is a message. A jasmine-scented veil may speak of joy, while a veil touched with amber might carry longing. Every fragrance is a code, every code a hidden custom. Later, as dusk falls, Diwali lamps are lit across the palace gardens. But before the flames rise, a secret ritual unfolds. Servants pour sandalwood oil into shallow clay bowls, lighting them one by one. The smoke that curls upward is not only light but offering. You stand among them, the air heavy with sweetness, watching the garden transform. Each flame seems to carry a prayer, each prayer carried upward by fragrance. In another season, Holi arrives, not only of colors, but of scents. The powders thrown into the air are mixed with crushed flowers, gulab, champa, marigold. As you are showered with colors, you realize your skin is not only painted but perfumed. Laughter surrounds you, bright as the blossoms, and in every breath history hides. The custom of coloring the air with fragrance as much as with pigment. Then comes Ramadan. At night, the courtyard is filled with lanterns. After fasting, the first sip of water is followed not by food, but by scent. The emperor's steward opens a vial of oud, its smoke rising through carved screens. Only after the oud has circled the chamber do they break their fast. For fragrance, they believe, cleanses hunger itself, preparing the soul for prayer. You notice the small customs too, the hidden ones. A bride's veil perfumed with marjoram to steady her nerves. A soldier's armor rubbed with camphor before battle to ward off fever. A scholar's ink mixed with saffron, so his words carry the fragrance of devotion. None of these are recorded in chronicles, yet all are remembered in scent. As the night deepens, you walk alone into the palace garden. The festival is over, yet fragrance lingers. Rosewater still clings to marble. Sandalwood smoke still drifts. Jasmine still glows faintly on silk. You understand now. Festivals end, rituals fade, but customs live on in the air itself, invisible but eternal. And as you close your eyes, breathing in the mingled memory of 1,000 rituals, you realize you are not just witnessing Mughal customs. You are carrying them within you, in every breath, every heartbeat, every lingering trace of fragrance. You walk through the carved archway of the Zenana. The air is quiet, yet thick with whispers. Curtains of silk sway like breath, and with every movement, a new fragrance drifts toward you. Rose, saffron, amber, oud. But you sense at once, these perfumes are not meant only for beauty. They are meant for secrets. Inside, the women of the court recline upon low divans. Their laughter is soft, but their eyes are sharp. Every vial on the marble trays beside them is a message. Every drop of oil a signal. You sit quietly, letting the scene unfold. A handmaiden enters carrying two bottles, one of jasmine, one of musk. She sets them on the floor between two ladies. Neither woman speaks. One simply uncorks the jasmine and lets its sweetness fill the air. The other responds by opening the musk. In silence, they have spoken. Jasmine for welcome, musk for caution. You realize then that perfumes here are a language, a code understood only by those within the veils. You remember a saying whispered in the corridors: ink records what is spoken, perfume records what is hidden. The Zenana is not merely a retreat, it is a chamber of power. Behind its screens, alliances are made, rivalries sealed, favors granted. Perfumes become weapons as subtle as any blade. A vial gifted to a friend carries loyalty. A vial withheld carries insult. And in rare cases, perfumes are laced with more than fragrance. They carry medicines, even poisons. You hear a story. A young princess once received a bottle of attar from a visiting courtier. Its fragrance was divine, a blend of rose and amber. But hidden in its depths was a bitter resin, one that, when worn upon the skin, caused the wearer to faint. The princess collapsed at a gathering. The court never proved the crime, but the whispers never died. Since then, every vial is tested by tasters before it is accepted. Still, the women smile, knowing perfume itself remains a double-edged gift. As the evening deepens, the Zenana grows more alive. A circle of women gather around a storyteller. She opens a bottle of sandalwood oil, rubs a drop upon her hands, and begins. With every gesture, the air fills with scent. Her tale is of lovers who recognized each other not by sight, but by fragrance, of queens who sent coated perfumes in place of letters, of secrets that lived longer in attar than on parchment. The women listen, eyes closed, letting the story drift not only through their ears, but through their breath. You wander deeper into the chambers. There you see a curious custom. A maid lights a small lamp filled with vetiver oil. The smoke curls upward, soft and cool. One of the elder women leans close and whispers, "Vetiver quiets the heart. Tonight, decisions will be made." You realize then that perfumes are chosen not only for pleasure, but for influence. A gathering scented with rose may soften tempers. A hall perfumed with saffron may stir courage. A chamber heavy with oud may silence voices. And so, the Zenana is not a cage. It is a council. Perfume here is parliament. Whispers carry power. Fragrance decides fate. You recall another tale spoken in low tones. Once, during a political dispute, a queen wished to influence the emperor. She did not speak directly, nor send a letter. Instead, she prepared his robes with a subtle mixture: rose to soften his heart, musk to anchor his resolve, amber to steady his judgment. That night, he changed his decision, tilting power in her favor. No one accused her. No one even spoke her name. But every woman in the Zenana understood. The emperor's choices had been perfumed. As the night wears on, laughter rises again. The women lean close, whispering secrets that will never leave these walls. You realize that in this place, words vanish, but scents remain. A dropped vial may linger for weeks, carrying a story no one dares to speak. The Zenana breathes in perfumes, as the outside world breathes in chronicles. One is written for kings, the other for queens. You leave quietly, stepping back through the archway. The air of the Zenana clings to you. Rose, musk, sandalwood, vetiver, all layered like whispers. You know now that fragrance here is not merely adornment, it is memory, code, weapon, prayer. And though you depart, the whispers remain wrapped in the veils of scent, hidden from history, but alive in every breath. You walk out from the stillness of the Zenana into the wide, starlit courtyards of Agra. The city breathes like a living being, its streets crowded, its markets alive, its gates heavy with secrets, and in the air, as always, a fragrance follows you: rose, jasmine, musk. You begin to wonder, where do these perfumes go when they leave the palace? What journeys do they take? At dawn, you stand at the edge of the Yamuna River. Boats rock gently against the ghats. On their decks sit wooden chests, carved with vines and painted with vermilion. You watch as men lift them carefully, for each chest is filled not with grain or stone, but with fragile bottles. Inside them lies rose water, attar, sandalwood oil, liquid treasures meant not just for emperors but for distant markets. Perfumes here are wealth as precious as silk, as guarded as jewels. The boatmen chant softly as they push away from the shore. Their voices mix with the smell of wet wood, river water, and faint perfume. The river carries them toward the great caravan routes that wind like veins across the empire. You follow in thought, and suddenly the scene shifts. You see the caravans, long lines of camels and horses swaying across the golden dust. Their bells jingle like whispers of time. The air is hot, dry, and endless, yet through it drifts the faintest sweetness. One broken vial is enough to perfume the wind for miles. Merchants ride in silence, for they know the value of their cargo. To spill perfume upon the sand is to spill fortune. At night, the caravans rest in caravanserais, vast stone inns built along the routes. Within their courtyards, lamps glow, fires crackle, and merchants unroll carpets heavy with trade. The perfumes are brought out carefully, one vial at a time. A drop is placed upon the wrist of a buyer. He inhales, closes his eyes, and nods. In that gesture, deals are struck, fortunes exchanged. No words louder than whispers are needed. Perfume speaks its own price. You walk among them unseen, watching as Persian traders lean close to smell Indian rose water, as Arab merchants unstopper sandalwood oils, as Turkic riders bargain for musk. The air itself becomes a market, thick with scents from every land. And then you see something more. Perfumes are not only goods, they are gifts, messages, prayers carried across distances. A vial of attar may be sent with a caravan not for sale, but for remembrance. A Mughal princess may send her brother in Persia a bottle of jasmine oil so that when he opens it, he breathes the same night air she breathes in Agra. A courtier may send ambergris across the seas as a silent blessing for safe return. Perfume travels as prayer, as memory, as unseen presence. The caravans stretch onward, but the perfumes also travel by sea. You find yourself standing on the deck of a ship at Surat. The harbor bustles with sails and ropes, voices calling in 100 tongues. Bales of cloth, sacks of spices, and boxes of jewels crowd the docks. But there, in the captain's cabin, are the most fragile treasures: glass flasks wrapped in silk, sealed with wax. The sailors know one cracked bottle may scent the ship for weeks. At night, as the waves rise and the winds cry, the crew sometimes believe they hear the prayers carried in the perfumes. They say rosewater stills storms, sandalwood soothes seas, oud guards against shipwreck, and whether true or not, they believe. So the bottles are guarded as though alive. You watch the ships sail westward, toward Arabia, where pilgrims returning from Mecca carry back Mughal perfumes as offerings, toward Persia, where poets dip their quills in rose water before writing verses, toward the Ottoman lands, where mosques are perfumed before prayer. The Mughal fragrances seep into the veins of the world, crossing deserts and oceans, carrying with them whispers of gardens, prayers of queens, and secrets of palaces. One night on the sea, you sit with the captain. He tells you a story. Years ago, a storm tore through his ship, drowning men and breaking cargo. Only one chest survived, washed ashore days later. When it was opened, inside were bottles of jasmine oil, untouched, unbroken. To him, it was not accident. It was a prayer kept alive by fragrance, carried over waves, guarded by something greater. Since then, he never sails, without carrying at least one vial of attar upon his body. They carry memory, faith, longing. They connect palaces to deserts, rivers to oceans, one heart to another. When you return to Agra, the scent of the world lingers on you. The perfumes you smelled in caravans and ships now seem alive in the air around the palace. You understand now. Each bottle within the Mughal court does not merely hold liquid. It holds journeys. It holds prayers whispered across mountains and seas. And when the emperor or his queens open them, they do not just inhale fragrance. They breathe the breath of faraway lands, the prayers of unseen souls, the silence of deserts, the roar of oceans, and you, standing in the quiet of the courtyard once more, know this. Mughal perfumes were never still. They were always in motion, carrying not only fragrance, but the secret soul of an empire. The palace is quiet again, but tonight the silence feels different. The air itself seems softer, gentler, almost sacred. You follow the fragrance that drifts beyond the Zenana gates, beyond the palace walls, into the heart of Agra's spiritual life. Tonight, you do not walk toward gardens or markets, but toward prayer. It begins with the mosque. At dawn, before the first call of the muezzin, attendants step softly through its vast courtyards. In their hands, they carry small crystal bottles. Inside, rose water. They sprinkle it lightly upon the stone floors, upon the carved screens, upon the steps that lead to the prayer hall. The fragrance rises with the first light of day. When worshippers arrive, their foreheads press against stone that smells faintly of roses. Their prayers, whispered into the morning, seem to ride upon that scent. You watch as the imam lifts a tiny vial before beginning the khutbah. He touches a drop to his hands, then to his beard. The fragrance is not decoration. It is intention, a reminder that prayer must be both clean and fragrant, both visible and unseen. You feel it as you breathe in. Perfume here is not for luxury. It is for presence. From the mosque, you walk through winding lanes to a Sufi shrine. The sun is higher now, and the streets grow crowded. Men and women carry garlands of marigold and jasmine. Some bring small bottles of sandalwood paste, some flasks of rose water. At the shrine's entrance, you see caretakers pouring rose water over the marble tomb. The stone drinks it, and the air blooms with fragrance. Devotees press their faces to the wet marble, their tears mixing with rose-scented water. They whisper prayers, prayers of longing, of healing, of gratitude. And as the scent rises, it seems those prayers rise with it. Inside, the khawals begin to sing. Their voices rise, layered and yearning, and with every beat of the tabla, the fragrance of incense curls higher into the dome. Oud, amber, frankincense. The air is heavy, almost alive. The music and the perfume blend until you cannot tell them apart. It is as if the heart itself is perfumed, and each sigh is scented with devotion. As night falls, the shrine glows with 100 lamps. Perfumed oils are poured into them before they are lit, so that even the flames carry fragrance. A breeze moves through the courtyard, and the light quivers, carrying both heat and scent to the waiting devotees. You close your eyes, and for a moment you feel as though you too are dissolving into the air, into the song, into the perfume. You leave the shrine, but the journey of fragrance in worship does not end there. In palaces and humble homes alike, perfumes accompany every ritual. Before Quran recitations, rose water is sprinkled upon the cloth that covers the holy book. At weddings, brides are anointed with saffron-scented oils, so that their very presence becomes a blessing. At funerals, the shrouds are perfumed with camphor and sandalwood, so that the body departs this world wrapped in fragrance like a soul wrapped in prayer. And then there are the royal ceremonies. In the Mughal court, no great feast, no coronation, no victory celebration begins without fragrance. Courtiers stand at the gates with long-necked sprinklers of rose water, sprinkling each guest as they enter. The emperor himself is anointed with attars before he sits upon the throne. The air grows heavy, dense, shimmering, for to rule in the Mughal imagination was not merely to command, it was to embody fragrance, to carry the scent of divinely ordained order. One evening, you are led into a private chamber within the palace. Here you see an intimate ritual. The emperor's mother sits quietly upon a low couch. Before her burns a small censer of agar wood. The smoke rises in pale blue swirls. A servant lifts a shawl, holding it above the smoke, so that the fabric drinks in the fragrance. When the shawl is laid upon her shoulders, she breathes deeply. Her prayer begins. She whispers blessings for her sons, for her people, for the empire. The fragrance carries those words upward, and you realize this is not for display. This is faith in its quietest form, woven of scent and breath. You move further through the city, and you notice how common people, too, turn to perfumes in rituals. A weaver lights a stick of incense before beginning his loom, whispering that his hands may weave without mistake. A mother rubs sandalwood on her child's forehead before sending him to school. A farmer pours rose water into the soil before sowing seeds. In each gesture, small and private, fragrance becomes prayer. Late at night, you return to the mosque. The lamps are low, the courtyard empty, the stars high above, and yet even now you smell it, faint, lingering. The rose water upon the stone, the sandalwood upon the imam's hands, the musk from the robes of worshippers. It has not left. It will not leave. Perfume, you realize, is not a fleeting guest in these places. It is a witness, a memory, a vessel that holds prayer long after the voice has faded. You stand in the stillness, breathing it in, and you know. In the Mughal world, perfume was not only luxury, it was not only trade, it was faith itself, an invisible bridge between the human and the divine, carrying whispers upward, carrying silence into eternity. The night is deep, and silence rests over the city like a heavy shawl. But even now, long after voices have faded and lamps have been extinguished, a fragrance lingers. It moves through empty courtyards, across abandoned palaces, into the hollows of memory itself. Tonight you walk not through markets or gardens, not through shrines or courts, but through the corridors of time. The Mughal Empire has faded. The emperors are gone, their thrones dismantled, their armies dissolved. Yet the perfume bottles remain. Some sit buried in the earth, waiting for hands to uncover them centuries later. Some lie forgotten in dusty chests, their glass clouded but still carrying a ghost of fragrance. Some have survived in museums where strangers peer through glass cases, wondering what prayers once floated inside. You lean closer. The bottle before you is small, delicate, shaped of crystal that still catches the light. Its stopper is carved with care, and inside, though the liquid has dried, you sense something, a trace of rose, perhaps, or sandalwood, or musk, a fragrance that clings to absence, a memory held in silence. And suddenly, you remember the garden where bottles were filled with attar at sunrise, the marketplace alive with shouting sellers and clinking glass, the shrine heavy with rosewater and prayers, the Zenana where women pressed perfume to their wrists before whispering secrets, the emperor's court where power itself was perfumed. Each scene returns, carried not by sight or sound, but by scent, for this is the secret of fragrance. It does not leave. Long after words are forgotten, after stones have crumbled, after dynasties have ended, scent remains. It waits, hidden, until one breath summons it back. You walk further. The empire dissolves around you, but the fragrances remain. Rose and amber, oud and musk, sandalwood and saffron, each a fragment of history, floating in the air like invisible ink. Each a memory, written not on paper, but on breath. You imagine a traveler, centuries after the Mughals, walking through the ruins of Fatehpur Sikri. The palaces stand empty, the fountains dry. Yet when the wind stirs, perhaps it still carries the faintest trace of rose water that once cooled the courtyards. You imagine another kneeling in the Jama Masjid at dawn, pressing his forehead to stone that still remembers the perfumes poured upon it centuries ago. You imagine a child in modern Delhi opening a carved box and finding a tiny glass vial inside. She lifts it, unscrews the stopper, and breathes in. And without knowing why, she feels the presence of a world long gone. The Mughal perfume bottles, you realize, were never only vessels of liquid. They were vessels of time, vessels of memory, vessels of prayers whispered into air, caught and carried across generations. You pause in your wandering. The night deepens. The stars above burn silently, but the air is not empty. It is full, full of every fragrance that has ever passed through the world, full of the rosewater of shrines, the sandalwood of rituals, the jasmine of gardens, the amber of palaces. You breathe in, and in that breath you carry centuries. Slowly, you begin to understand. The empire may be gone, but its fragrances endure. They endure in glass bottles hidden in museums. They endure in rituals still performed. They endure in memory, in story, in breath. And now they endure in you. You close your eyes. The last sound fades, the last light dims, but the fragrance remains. It drifts softly, endlessly, beyond empires, beyond centuries, beyond time, a perfume that holds prayers, carrying them where words cannot go. And as you drift into sleep, you realize you are not leaving this world behind. You are carrying it with you, every breath, every scent, every memory. The Mughal perfumes linger still, waiting in silence, holding the empire in their fragile, unbroken glass.